Hello, hello, hello.
And welcome to the Hildebrand Law Firm topic for today.
I'm Kirsten Hildebrand.
And I'm Matt Kaplan.
And today we're going to talk about the dumb things that you can do with your trust.
What sorts of dumb thing? I mean, what are you talking about? Doesn't the lawyer do everything?
Yeah, well, one would hope that a good lawyer would be able to educate their people, their clients, on how to make sure that they don't mess this up. But a lot of times the education does not happen, and then people are sort of like flapping out there in the breeze and they don't know what they can possibly be doing or not doing to completely flub this up.
Yeah, and so one of the things that I always try to explain to clients is that after the trust is done, it's not like, okay, cool, I'm done, now I just have to go off and die. No, after the trust is done, there's two very important steps that need to get done. We'll talk about both of them at length. Step number one, fund the darn thing. You gotta fund it. This cup, although you think it might have coffee in it, it's completely empty. And so besides a prop, this cup being empty, totally useless. This cup only has value in it with what you put in it. As good as the coffee is in it, that's as good as the cup. So if you spent all this money and all this time getting this wonderful trust together, let's say you went to the most expensive guy in town, you paid him $50,000, he gave you a 750-page trust. Every single page is laminated, scented, it's delightful. It is in multiple languages, it is in the best font you've ever seen. It was all written in calligraphy, whatever. You have the most beautiful trust ever. If you don't fund it, you just wasted all of that money.
You might as well have gone to New York and used that same money to have a phenomenal weekend,
Right.
or even a week. Maybe you can do New York in a week.
You might as well have went to Potawatomi and put all that money on the 49ers to win the Super Bowl. So you just wasted all of that money. So step number one after your trust is done, make sure that darn thing is funded. Step number two, make sure the darn thing is maintained. So Kirsten, talk to me about some things to consider with regards to funding and how important that is.
Sure. And so one of the things that we always do is we help our clients right off the bat fund the trust with any real estate that they might need to get it funded with. We have had situations before where the first question we ask when we're reviewing somebody's estate plan is, now, is your residence in the trust? Is the property in Florida in the trust? And we get this like eyes as big as saucers look.
I hope
and
so.
I hope so. We thought the attorney did that, and then we pulled the deeds, and lo and behold, 95% of the time, they are not in the trust. And so that is a really big problem. And so funding is not just about money, it's about making sure that those assets that have titling are transferred into the trust. Also, funding is done through what we call an assignment. So what about all of those assets that don't have a title to them? And they may have value, like for example, jewelry is a good one. The furs, maybe the baseball cards, the memorabilia.
You know, I can tell you are rich, Kirsten. You refer to it as the furs. Like we all have a closet that just holds all the furs.
Right. That's right. Well, I don't. So my mother did though.
Good.
So anyway, any of those things, they don't have a title. And because they don't have a title, they need to be transferred into the trust some way, somehow. And so we do that through an assignment. Make sure that that is something that you do. And then also, funding is all about the money. So what kinds of assets can be transferred into the trust?
Almost everything. Anything that is in your personal name can be transferred into the trust, with the sole exception of retirement accounts. The IRS has not allowed retirement accounts to be transferred in the trust. My thinking in that is that most of the time the money comes out pre-tax,
Yes.
And so you have to pay the tax when you eventually have to take out those required distributions. And because of that, it can't be transferred to somebody else because you're just delaying the tax down the road. And so retirement accounts, but even in keeping with that, even Roths can't be in the name of a trust, which I find kind of silly, but whatever. So retirement accounts can't do it, but everything else can. Your checking account, your savings account, money market, your CDs, your stocks, your bonds, your mutual funds, your investment account, your brokerage accounts, your life insurance. Life insurance is a big one, especially for Medicaid purposes. If that life insurance policy has a cash value, if it's a whole life policy, put that darn thing into an irrevocable trust. Medicaid will never make you cash it out. All of these things. What else can be in there? If you have cars, boats can be in trust. Airplanes can be in trust. Some people have airplanes, especially Wisconsin, oddly enough, is a really popular state for small private planes. People love to fly them around, especially fly them up north. There's tiny airports everywhere. So all of these any fun transportation device needs to be in the trust. And so if there's something in your name, my philosophy is get that out of your darn name, put in the name of the trust, because you don't know. Anything can happen to you. You want your stuff to be safe.
I agree. Now, in terms of then the other elements that we should be thinking about, what else can be done to ruin the trust?
Oh my gosh, so many things. So when you set up the trust, if not funding it obviously is the biggest red flag, the biggest ruiner of the trust. You can also not treat the trust how the trust is supposed to be treated. So let's say you decide to get an irrevocable trust for protection from Medicaid or for protection from lawsuits, nursing homes, and stuff like that. We always spend a considerable amount of time educating the client. This stuff is in there, it's going to stay there, because if you have access to it, everybody in the world has access to it. So, great way to ruin that trust and turn that wonderful irrevocable trust into a revocable trust is to take out those assets and use them for yourself.
Right.
That's a really wonderful way to ruin it all. Open that box to the rest of the world to have access now to everything that's within there. So if you have an account that's in there and you're like, oh, I'll just use money from this account. You would just open those box tops. Now your house is up for grabs. All those other accounts in there are up for grabs. Everything else is up for grabs.
Yep, those are really good points. I think one other way that you can ruin your trust in less than 5 seconds is by maybe informing people about the trust and maybe having people who are less scrupulous than you would like them to be to find out about the fact that you may have a trust in existence. So that's something else that we counsel our clients about is who should we tell about the fact that we have a trust in place? And we walk through that and we talk through that and figure out who are the appropriate individuals that should have a copy of the trust and who shouldn't. Because another way to ruin your trust is to do an amendment, but then not back up and make sure that everybody who has a copy of that trust also has a copy of that amendment that changes some of the provisions of the original trust. So because that can become an issue, we tend to say the less number of individuals or entities that have copies of this trust, the better off you are.
Right. I totally agree with that. And, when we give someone their physical copy of the trust, we do it in a big, red, audacious, some would say stand out-ish binder.
Yep.
And the reason we do that is we don't want this to be a secret for you and your family, but we want you to tell people, we don't, if you want to. And that's the wonderful thing is that if you just have a will and you go through a probate, everybody knows, regardless if you wanted them to. The whole point of the trust is you keep it within your inner circle.
So if you are not going to Hildebrand Law Firm and you get a trust and you put it in the deepest shelf or deepest drawer that you have, and it gets covered with all kinds of other documents, and then all of a sudden it is needed for some reason because it's referenced in a document and nobody can find a copy of this trust. That's also another way
Oh, yeah.
to ruin your trust, because how is anybody going to know what your wishes and desires are if a copy of the trust cannot be found? So that is also another way to ruin the trust, is to hire a law firm that doesn't provide you with the support with respect to how you're maintaining the trust, but also doesn't maintain that trust themselves. So, for example, at Hildebrand Law Firm, we keep an electronic version of it, we keep a hard copy version of it in our files in storage. And so if anybody were to call, we would be able to pull up a copy of that trust for them. And that is very important. We've had several people come to us from sole practitioner law firms or extremely small practitioner law firms where that individual retires and they have no idea how to get a copy of their estate planning documents. So it's something else to consider.
Yeah, retires or dies. How many times have we heard that? Oh, my previous attorney died.
Right.
And it's just a little unsettling to me that my estate planning attorney did not outlive me. And I'm like, well, I mean, I've got our money on us,
That's
outliving
right.
most of our clients.
Yes.
So that's why
yes.
I try to tell people, like, I fully plan to outlive you. I don't plan on
Well,
moving anywhere. So
Yeah, that's right. And one of the most important things that I heard is congratulations for opening up a law firm. Who is your successor? And we at Hildebrand Law Firm have this attitude of we are a 100-year law firm. So there is not any concept within how we're developing that this is going to be something that's open and closed. This is going to be a multi-generational, long-term neighborhood law firm.
Yep.
And,
After the apocalypse, it's going to be cockroaches, Twinkies,
and
Hildebrand Law
Hildebrand
Firm.
Law Firm. That's great. I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much for joining us for this interesting episode of How to Ruin Your Trust in Less Than 5 Seconds. And we are here for your today and your tomorrow. And thank you for joining us. We will see you next time.